we sometimes have this idea, especially when they're very small, we need to do this, we need to do this so that they learn this and they learn that. And as my kids have been growing, I've realized, wow, not only are they learning more from what I'm doing and not what I'm saying, so my teaching them is quite ineffective because they're watching me anyway. They're often turning around and teaching me lessons that I think are remarkable. Just yesterday, I was saying to my daughter that I was about to go on this podcast and I was feeling a little nervous. And I said, Mommy doesn't really do this on the computer. And so my little 8-year-old said, yeah, well, I don't speak in front of the class. And last week I did a presentation. And what did you tell me, Mommy? You got to use your own words. I thought to myself, like, holy moly, this kid is giving me my own words back.
That's amazing.
And I thought, yeah, you're right.
Hi, we are The Confident Communicator, and I am Seema Mehta, along with my partner, Deepma Jadeja. Welcome to Imperfect Parenting. Together, let's get on a journey of discovering kindness, success, and happiness courageously, fearlessly, and by holding ourselves to a standard of grace, not perfection. It is our mission at The Confident Communicator to empower kids and adults discover their own uniqueness through our coaching, training, and soft skills program. We welcome you to a new chapter of Imperfect Parenting, a series dedicated to discovering our own uniqueness without judgment by chiseling away all superfluous materials within ourselves.
Hi everyone, this is Deepma Jadeja from The Confident Communicator with my wonderful partner Seema Mehta. Welcome to yet another episode of Imperfect Parenting, where we have an amazing guest today. Mel and I first met on LinkedIn, where she shares posts of her very imperfect journey through life and her imperfect parenting journey as well. And she supports people in raising connected, confident, and resilient children, which is something that both Seema and I are passionate about. And so we immediately connected with Mel and love what she writes on LinkedIn. And one of the things that I would like to mention here is her latest post on LinkedIn, which touched me. And that was where she showed a dust bunny from her home and a beautiful flower in a flower vase. And she said, what do you see? Do you see the flower or do you see the dust bunny? And that is what touched me, because I felt, let's embrace the perfection and the imperfection in our lives and celebrate both. That's why we have Mel here. So Mel, welcome to Imperfect Parenting. And please tell us, well, we know you, but please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Deepma. Hi guys. My name is Mel. I've got 2 kids. They are 10 and 8. And when I'm not doing my full-time job of being a mom, I'm also a kid psychologist. And I work in a school. And because of COVID, I had a 1.5-year sabbatical from school because there were family situations that required me taking a sabbatical. And during this time, I was home and I was homeschooling my kids. And oh my gosh, hats off to the homeschooling parents. I have learned a lot. And during this time that I was at home, a very, very dear friend of mine and I created an app because we started connecting with lots of parents who were saying the same things to us. And whether you're sabbatical or not, or whether you're on a sabbatical or not, if you're a kid psychologist, people are going to find you any which way to talk to you about their kids. Yeah. So I started realizing that there were so many things in common. And so we've created this app, which is why I got on LinkedIn in the first place, because I'm actually a social media dinosaur. I'm terrified of social media. You will not find me in very many places because I am still learning this game. And today I found out that Instagram involves reels. So this is a worldwide Mel first. I'm actually on a screen. And I'm actually a little bit stressed, but I've decided it doesn't need to be perfect. So we're talking about imperfect parenting. So it's kind of fitting.
Exactly. I was about to say that. And I remember when we were talking to you earlier, the fact that you have become this homeschooler, right? You're homeschooling your kids. Hats off to you. Okay. Because there's a lot of parents who are saying, you know what? The time that we send our children from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. is when we can actually breathe. And you actually took them in and you're actually having a great time. You're pointing out dust bunnies and flowers, and you're able to come up with such creative ideas to make this parenting journey more bearable than many of us actually experience. And the idea where you said something very, very important yesterday when we were talking to you is that remembering what people do well should be their superpower. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So why don't we start off from there? Tell us a little bit about that superpower, about remembering people, reminding people what they do, what they are good at, and what they do well.
So firstly, I'm happy to announce my kids are now back in school.
Sanity returns.
Yeah, wow. I mean, still props to everybody who homeschools.
Yes.
And I did it because I needed to out of absolute medical necessity. But God bless our educators.
Absolutely.
Parents need them. There is a reason why we do the parenting and somebody else does the educating. But on the subject of noticing what it is, superpowers, noticing what we do well. I have this story just before I announced my sabbatical, and I was having this conversation with a dad, and he was telling me about his worries about his kid, and he was very worried about whether or not his kid was going to have the confidence he needed to face the stuff. He was worried about how his kid was learning. He was worried about his gaps, and he was worried about a lot of things that all of us worry about. Because show me a parent with absolutely no worries, and I'll show you a fictitious character. But the reality of it was that this father was, he had turned his life around to have time in the evenings to read to his kid. He had given his kid his old work computer because he noticed his kid was struggling to write. And so his kid did better typing, and he wanted to give his kid the confidence of being able to produce written work. And this father had done so many little things. He had organized with his wife. He had organized these incredible play dates so his child could have one friend or two friends, so that he would make friends and manage things a lot easier. But basically, this father had done so many things. And I'd spent so much time thinking, wow, this is an incredible guy. And when the dad was telling me about his worries about his kid, I said, have you thought about all the things you've already done? And he said, no, what do you mean? And so I listed back the things that I knew, because I'd been talking to this guy for a while, all the amazing things that he'd done. And I'm like, what? How far do you think your kid would be if you hadn't already done these things? And he said, oh, and this is the thing that I think all of us human beings have in common, is that our perspective changes when we look at it through the lens of having seen where we've come from and the strengths we already have. Yes, and it's such a powerful tool. It's a really powerful tool. You can actually hack your perspective if you look at it through the lens of your strengths. And I'm not talking about strengths like I boast and I say, oh, good job, Mel, very well done, and all this is so clever, you're so wonderful. No. I'm talking about the everyday real things we're doing. That actually make us feel like, actually, this is okay. You're going to survive this. Your kid's going to survive this. Everybody's going to be okay in the end, because you're doing your best, and it's good enough, and it's actually pretty darn awesome. So,
so is that, would you equate that to, because a lot of people, the buzzwords that a lot of people use is, for example, is that similar to being grateful? Is it gratitude, or is it just shifting your attention from, where you're so used to looking at what we didn't do right, or everything we messed up, or our guilt as parents, or all the things that we have screwed up, how horrible we are, or how, we are not perfect parents, all of those things. Are you asking us to be grateful, or are you asking us to shift our perspective from, all the things we have not done right, but then focusing on what we are doing right, actually?
I have a very simple way of looking at it.
Okay.
I'm asking parents, or rather I'm inviting parents. To be success miners. Imagine that you are a gold mine. Somewhere inside, there's plenty of gold. I'm asking you to mine for your success, or I'm inviting you to mine
Beautiful.
your success. And the thing is, everybody has it, and this dad said to me, oh, how do you remember all these things? And I said to him, actually, if you train yourself, or if you're mindfully thinking, I'm going to mine the successes and I'm going to focus on that, whatever you focus on becomes more real to you, right?
Yes.
And so, and this is not positive, toxic positivity, woo woo, rah rah, we're all great or anything. No, I'm inviting you to think about things you've done that you're actually proud of, because we don't always do a very great job of noticing what's going well. We think about the stuff that's going wrong, that we want to fix, that we need to learn from, and all this other kind of stuff. And sometimes that can have the feeling of, feeling like a great weight. And we need to balance this out a lot, which is why we think that inviting parents to reflect on their own successes doesn't make you puffed up. It doesn't make you full of yourself. Doesn't make you, and it can be a very private thing, but it is a skill. It is a skill. It is something that we need to practice, because the Passover effect of this on our kids is very great. It's very great.
I was just about to say that, Mel, where as parents, as human beings, our children do what they see us doing, not what they see us saying, or not what they hear us saying, right? And so when they see you focusing and saying, hey, we got these things right, then they are also going to be able to focus on their wins instead of being so self-critical. And I think that has to be the superpower that we pass on from ourselves to our children. Seema and I have this woman, this educator from the US named Rita Pearson, who used to say that, she had a student who got, I think, 2 out of 20. She got 2 out of 20 in a math test, and she put a smiley face, and he was like, ma'am, why are you putting a smiley face on a 2 out of 20? I failed. And she said, yes, you failed, but you got at least 2 right. And we're going to celebrate those 2 right with the smiley face. And then we're going to start working on the 18 that you didn't get right. And the only place you can go from here is up. Right. And so I think as parents, that's beautiful what you say. Be mindful, go ahead and celebrate your own wins. And I remember this as even a place of making memories, right? When I talk to my now adult children about their memories, some of the things that they remember are the things that I am the most ashamed of. For example, the time when we had cereal for dinner, right? Because I was just too tired to cook a full meal. And I said, you know what, today is going to be a little bit of a different day. And we took out the 3 different types of cereals that we had, and we, mixed them up, and we had cereal for dinner. And to me, that was something that was like, I don't want anyone to hear of it. Now I'm telling the world, but I don't want anyone to know this, because it proves to me that I'm not a good parent. And now my adult children say, oh, that used to be so much fun when daddy was traveling and we used to have cereal for dinner. That was so much fun. And it was like, oh, so I think that memories are made out of imperfections rather than perfections. What do you say to that? Yeah,
absolutely. I think the perfect parent is a myth. I think there are times when we are close to it and we are happy in our parenting bliss because we feel connected to our kids. But I think that feeling connected to our kids is as close as we get to perfection. And it's not about the perfect house or the perfect environment, the perfect school, the perfect number of skills that the kid has had, or any of those things, all the lessons we're sending them to, and all this other kind of nonsense. It's all rubbish, because at the end of the day, none of us on our deathbed are going to be thinking, oh, how wonderful, we sent our kid to piano and 6 lesson languages and all of these things, and we made all of that happen. Although, great if your kids want to do that. But the parenting journey is raw and ugly and challenging and beautifully imperfect, because it's also joyful and maturing, and it's a mirror to yourself like you'll never see. Like I used to think, oh, I really know myself, until I had kids. And then I thought, holy moly, who is Mel and what has happened to her? And I realized that, becoming a parent is really dying to yourself. Like you don't exist in that same way.
Your
are still
entire,
your
you
person.
become a completely new human being. You've just changed.
Yeah.
And to that point, Mel, you had said something very interesting, is that, we always put ourselves in a position of giving teachable moments to our children, right? So we are expected to know all the answers. We are offering teachable moments, but you are saying the exact opposite. You are saying, no, it's actually the children who are teaching us something. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think that we sometimes have this idea, especially when they're very small, we need to do this and we need to do this so that they learn this and they learn that. And as my kids have been growing, I've realized, wow, not only are they learning more from what I'm doing and not what I'm saying, so my teaching them is quite ineffective because they're watching me anyway. They're often turning around and teaching me lessons that I think are remarkable. Just yesterday, I was saying to my daughter that I was about to go on this podcast and I was feeling a little nervous. And I said, Mommy doesn't really do this on the computer. And so my little 8-year-old said, yeah, well, I don't speak in front of the class. And last week I did a presentation. And what did you tell me, Mommy? You got to use your own words. I thought to myself, like, holy moly, this kid is giving me my own words back.
That's amazing.
And I thought, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah. Thank you for reminding me about my own words. And
that's
wonderful.
So Mel, there's going to be a lot of parents who are just starting out their journey as a parent. And I love this, I would say utopian for the moment, because I'm a little bit skeptical. Utopian because I would say, okay, let's start the parenting journey being very positive, only focusing on everything positive, all of that. Great. I'd love to be in that mindset. But life has some other plans for you. It throws things at you, curveballs, challenges, stress, comparisons, expectations, and all of that. And to be able to mindfully pull yourself out of that mess and that shit, how do you acquire this? Let me focus on the parenting wins and have that, remember what I'm good at. How do you do that? I mean, can you kind of walk us through the process?
Right. So firstly, it's not exactly about focusing on the positives. In fact, I don't really like the word positive.
Yeah.
Because firstly, because I think it's got a sort of inauthentic feel to it.
Yes.
I'm talking about focusing on the parenting wins. I mean, a win can look different for another person. If you've been, for example, severely depressed and you've managed to make it out of bed today to just put some conflicts on the table for your kid. Hey, that's a win too. A win doesn't have to be, I created a 5-course meal for my offspring with all the food groups and all that. No. And this is the thing that I think is important. Is it's not about, and the wins are all around us, right? The wins are happening no matter what. It's, are you choosing to see them?
Correct.
And if anybody who's getting out of bed, putting a foot on the ground and looking at their kids has already technically done something. Move a little bit further from that and connect with your kids, say something like this. There are wins everywhere. It's just a matter of perception. It's like that dust and the flower. Life is going to have the dust and the flowers. There are going to be the wins and the losses. But the reason why we created the app is because, we all have days where we think, shoot, I'm screwing up my kid. I'm really messing my kid up. I've just yelled at them, or I've just, said something I shouldn't have said, or, that comment I made was more about my pain that is in some totally unrelated thing. And my poor kid has just had to deal with my response, which has nothing to do with them. And in those days when we are feeling, or in those moments, I mean, it's not even days. Sometimes it's just moment to moment,
it's just that moment.
In those moments, what we did is we want people to be able to tap on their resources of what they're already doing well. But in those moments, our brain can't tell us what we've already done well. Nobody can switch that way. And so that's why we created this app.
So let's
Where?
back up. Just let's back up a little bit since we haven't spoken about the app yet.
Mhm.
I know I love that you're talking about, first of all this, and I used to follow this too, all of this positive parenting and gentle parenting and conscientious or conscious parenting. All that is all very well. But like Seema said, there are those moments where we're like, oh God, I messed up and I messed up so bad. And we have to realize that these are small moments. And just as these are moments, our kids are surprisingly resilient. And we have these other small moments which are very good, that we're doing well. And so we have to learn to forgive ourselves for this stuff and kind of reward ourselves for this stuff. And that's where I think your app comes in. So tell us a little bit about the app and then how you help in the app us deal a little bit more mindfully about the parenting wins that you talk about rather than positive parenting, and let go of some of the stuff that maybe we weren't too proud of. But you know what? In the whole scheme of things, they're not that big of a deal.
Sure, sure. I mean, the thing is, I think it's very hard to grow in a feeling of shame. And
Yes.
I think that we
Yep.
give ourselves a lot of shame or blame, and we secretly think, oh God, and sometimes we might talk about it with a good friend or something, and they will say, you're actually a good mom, or you're actually a good dad. Don't worry about it. It's okay. They'll be fine. And although we hear all of these words, they don't always, or at least for me, I don't always believe them.
Correct.
And
Because you're
and
my friend, you're supposed to tell me good things. You're supposed to
exactly,
support me. You're my
exactly.
spouse. You're supposed to make me feel better. Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. What do you do then?
Exactly. So, and in those moments, we can't tap into our own, well, I actually did this and this right, because we're so busy wallowing in our own feeling of, oh, I
Self-pity.
messed up, right? Yeah. I messed up. This is just not
And it is so
what I
funny
was.
that when you talk to a friend who's going through the exact same thing, like it happened to me a couple of days ago. I was talking to a friend of mine about our daughters who are the same age. They grew up together, and I said, my daughter used to be so non-confrontational. Now she argues with me about everything. I think I'm messing up. I think I'm not patient. I'm not. So she says, one second, let me stop you right there. I have the same problem. And when she said that to me, I almost felt very relieved that I am not the only person in this arena of parenting who's battling this monster all by myself. There are all other parents who are going through the exact same thing. So if we are all going through the exact same thing, why then are we so hard on ourselves? And you're right. It is very hard to grow with that feeling of shame. It's really, really hard to feel that, no, I think I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable with this. So I think when you becomes less self-critical, when you are your own voice that says, no, I think you're doing fine, is when you believe it. If your friend tells you the same thing, you are my friend, you're supposed to tell me that, right? So are you trying to tell us that we need to have that voice, as our own voice that tells ourselves that what you're doing is fine? Think of what you won at rather than what you lost at.
I think that the goal would be that we have an inner voice that can be balanced, but it's not really that easy. And I mean, I haven't gotten there yet.
No.
And I don't know many people who have. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are self-actualized enough to get there, but
But those are very few.
I get in these days where I'm like, oh my God, like what did I, and this is why we thought, if the brain can't get there in that moment of like, I feel like I'm a failure, then wouldn't it be great if there was a tool? And this goes back to my conversation with the dad, the dad I was talking about right at the beginning of this session. He had said to me, what am I going to do without you around, Mel, to remind me about these things? I wish I had you in my pocket. And he was actually the guy who gave us the idea for the app, because I had this good friend who was creating this incredible world-changing app for women in certain parts of the world to have access to important information. And so I told her this idea. I was like, hey, there's this dad, and he said this to me, and what if we did that? And she said, Mel, let's do it. And so we created this app that is essentially going to help parents firstly log their own parenting wins. And it's crazy easy. You can do it with a tap. It's super simple. and it's not specific. There's not a lot of text. We know people don't want to read a lot of stuff. It's so simple to work. It's very quick. And how it works is it's got options for you to add your wins as well. And so when you're having those rainy parenting days, those crappy days where you think, I'm wallowing in my own shame, you actually have the thing that you can go back and look at it and say, well, I think I'm just going to read my own little parenting win.
Yes.
And I'm going to see how this is. And many years ago, many years ago, when I started off working with very little kids, we had a little kid who was he was famous. He was famous wherever he went. He was quite infamous, actually. And he'd be climbing walls, climbing tables, doing all sorts of things. And everybody would be like, oh God, let's get Mel, or let's get him to Mel. And I remember thinking, I want to hang out with this guy. He's great. He's famous. And he turned out to be the most incredible kid. And we started writing down the things he liked about himself. And we started slowly writing his wins. So for example, he thought he was very great at climbing. So we arranged that he would be able to climb in lots of places. Yeah. Ooh. Once we gave this guy an audience and some apparatus to climb, his belief in his own climbing was so great. And guess what? He started being able to sit down because he'd had his audience.
Yeah.
But what happened was we also created a book for him where when he was feeling like he was not so good or in not such a happy place, he could look at his own book. And of course, he was in the first grade. He had just come to the first grade. He couldn't read yet. So it was him drawing his wins. The point I'm making is whether you can read and write or whether you're still drawing things, focusing on your wins, whether you be adult or child, helps you see yourself differently. And when you see yourself differently, you actually react differently. And everybody's like, oh, how do I do it? And how do I do it? And what is this great big secret? Actually, the switch is a simple one that just needs to be mindfully applied. It's how and where we are training our eyes. And again, this is not training our eyes on the positive, let's see the bright side, the sun is shining rainbows out of unicorns' butts. No, it's it's not that. It's what did I do today that, there was a little win for me. And that little win can be tiny. You're not measuring it against anybody else's win. It's just your personal win.
It's your own thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, yesterday when we were talking, there was one point that we made, like when we all go for a vacation, like a family vacation, we take these very happy pictures. We look at them and we say, oh, what a wonderful vacation. I'm sure every family goes through a vacation where somebody has been upset about something and the parent has yelled at the child for about something. None of those get documented, but all the happy moments and the happy poses and the happy smiles come in front of us in forms of pictures. And then many years later, when we go back and look at some of these videos, I remember, when I look at my children's videos as they were growing up, and I said, oh my God, that was a completely different life. I was such a patient parent. I was so good. I used to do so many activities. I used to spend so much time with them. I read so many books with them, and I started building this thing. And I said, see, I've done all of these things. Then why am I beating myself up? So it's literally, I think your app is going to do something to that effect, where we're just shifting our focus into, look, everything is not a screw up. We have done a lot of things that work for us, and we need to build on our wins as much as we can. It is not necessarily a positive way of looking at it, but just everything that we are able to do rather than what we are not able to do. So I think that's absolutely mind-blowing what you're doing, Mel.
I do love that. And Mel, thank you so much for saying that you would like to offer our viewers a chance to be the first, once the app is ready, to sign up for the app and to get the first version of it to try out and give you feedback on that. So that's so amazing. And we will be sure to post that link as soon as you get it to us. And we will, when we post this interview. Another thing that I love about you, and it's come out beautifully in this interview, is that you love bringing humor into everything that you do. And that's fabulous, because I love how you said when that little boy in the first grade was climbing everything and disrupting, quote unquote, disrupting everything and being a total menace to everyone else. And you're looking at him saying, I love this kid. I want to hang out with him. I want to be with him. So you're able to not just see the his wins, but you're also able to bring humor into it and say, "Oh, this is so funny. This is so amazing." One of the things that I noticed about you when I was going through your LinkedIn profile is that you write nonsense rhymes about a lot of different things. So I want to now Mel is very, very conscious and a little unnecessarily so. They're so fabulous. So I want to invite you guys to go check her profile out, and please check on her nonsense rhyme. She shared one with us, which I will share in the post when we post this. But Mel, the other thing, to get back to a little bit of seriousness, I'm so grateful that you spent this wonderful time with us, telling us about how important it is to focus on our wins, to teach our children to focus on their wins, like make a book for them or make some kind of a photo gallery for them where they are able to see what they're doing right. Because in our parenting journey, in our education journey, we are constantly looking for what we're doing wrong. We're constantly looking for, oh, I got 80 out of 100 now, how do I make that 85 out of 100? And I've been guilty of saying that to my children, saying, hey, you got 80%. That means you're really smart. Let's focus on how to get to 85%. Let's focus on how to get to 90%. And I'm realizing that I took away that 80% from them, right? Because I was focusing on what they didn't get. And I want to start asking all of our parents out there to start focusing on the wins, both for themselves and their children, and the other wins, the greater wins will present themselves. Mel said something very powerful to me, and I want to leave you guys with that statement. She said, if we remember and focus on our parenting successes and in fact celebrate them, our failures will have less of a hold on us. And that, I think, is what I would like to leave our viewers with at the end of this Imperfect Parenting. Seema, would you like to say something? And then Mel will get you for last.
I'm getting a little greedy because everything you've been saying is so wonderful. I especially love the the unicorn's butt comment.
The unicorn butts.
Hilarious. I always tell people who are just about to embark on the journey of parenting, is if you want to be a parent, you need to have a sense of humor. And if you don't have a sense of humor, go to Mel's post and maybe learn it from her.
Yes.
But as I said earlier, I'm being a little greedy. If there are 3 to 4 areas, and we like to always leave our viewers with some tips, that I know that you have included that in your app about listening and about letting the children lead things and stuff like that. Would you be able to share with our viewers 2 to 3 tips that parents can just sort of keep in mind when they are focusing on the parenting wins?
Yeah, look for the ridiculous. Yes. Parenting is such a ridiculous journey. It is so ridiculous. I sometimes, when I'm getting really, really mad and I need to have some kind of a solution, or I need to say something to my kids, I almost imagine, what would it be like if this was a stage and I was some kind of improv actor and I had to come up with something. And, I think parents who are educators, who stand in front of a classroom every day, will know what this is like. Sometimes we're like, the class is noisy, everything is crazy, and we've got to somehow wrangle 25 kids, and some places 50 kids. Yeah. And what helps me so much is I always think, you have this patience in this situation, you can also have your patience here. And so many of us have a lot of patience in our workplaces, and we're dealing with people whom we love significantly less. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the boss that we want to wring their necks. Sometimes it's the co-worker who's just, sleeping on the job. Sometimes it's somebody who just messed up. But there, we're able to be incredibly professional and incredibly wonderful. But when we come home, our kids, they're the beneficiaries of all the crap, and then I think, no. Actually, we have to think about all of this as improv acting, right? Like, we need to be aware of, this is that show, and now this is this show, and it's different. And I think seeing the ridiculousness in all of this is really great. Like sometimes when my kids come back and they're telling me about so-and-so, doing something to them. We always eat our meals at the table. That's really helpful for the conversation we find. And so we don't ask our kids, what was your day? How was your day in school and stuff like that? Because sometimes we get like fine or okay or whatever.
Exactly. Oh
Let's
my
try
God.
and say like, okay, who did the silliest thing today in class, or who was the first person to make you laugh, or
Yeah.
if you could go to school today and wave a magic wand to relive one moment in the day, what would it be? And so we're very playful and very we just do different things with our conversations, and that is something that everybody can do. So I say, see the ridiculousness in it, invite the ridiculousness. Don't take yourself too seriously, and don't feel the need to be serious. I mean, seriously, like the world is serious enough. We gotta have a sense of humor. I mean, we're going to hell in a handbasket on an overheating planet. Like we've got to find some humor in our parenting journey. Otherwise, we'll all be fried.
No, and I think you're right. I think we need to take away all these negative words, the toxic positivity, or, oh, let's just focus on, like we talk about failure, for example, and we had this conversation earlier that how would you look at failure? I mean, if in our classroom, for example, we actually love the idea of talking about failure, and we do it with a great sense of humor. So last week we had a bunch of students who came back and said, so auntie, I want to talk about my failure. So, okay, what is it? We were playing a football game, and instead of hitting the goal on my side of the goalie, I hit it on the opposite side of the goal, and it was ridiculous. Everybody was so upset with me because we lost the game thanks to me. And at that time I felt really, really bad. But right now when I think about it, I think it's extremely funny, and we had such a good laugh.
Yeah.
And you're right, looking at the ridiculousness of, like, why would you put the goal on the opposite side instead of your own side? Why would you do stuff like that? But to be able to laugh at even the mistakes, to be able to laugh at even failures, or just talk about something very silly.
Yeah.
I think we are sort of losing that sense of humor as parents. We are taking our job so seriously that everything is expected out of us, and we have to answer every single question and solve every single problem. No, we don't need to do that. We can be very silly and ridiculous at the table, right?
Love it.
Absolutely. And I think talking about failure, acknowledging our own imperfections, I think that's so powerful and so important, because imperfection leads to connection, right? Like, who wants to connect with perfect?
Correct. Exactly.
Who even sees themselves imperfect? We all connect to people that we can relate to, who are just as imperfect as us. And so, when connecting with kids, we don't want them to think that we're the gold standard sitting on a pedestal. All of us know that feeling of when we first realized that our parents were fallible. I mean, what a fall from grace, right? But actually, if we never have that, because our parents are telling us straight up, hey, you know what, just as fallible as you. And like in our house, we make fun of each other all the time. Like it's
which is vulnerability. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's about respect, absolutely. But the respect goes towards the parents and the kids. And that is very important, because we are trying to raise respectful people, and people know how to be respectful when they have first felt respect to themselves. Correct. So that, I think, is a very important aspect of all of this. Any idea of, kids should be seen and not heard and very quiet and listen to everything the grown-ups say and all that. No, we're raising critical thinking, intelligent citizens of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we cannot be like, I say you do, I say jump, you say how high. No, that's not what we're doing.
My way or the highway. Yeah, absolutely.
No, my way or the highway. I mean, that kind of stuff, it never worked, and it definitely will not work.
I think you made such a valid point about the respect part. Like if we are raising these kind of kids, and if they don't feel any sense of respect or self-worth, it all gets connected to their self-worth. Like nobody ever talked to me nicely. Nobody ever really listened to me. As parents, we jump to trying to solve their problems, but we don't really sit down and listen to what they're trying to say. Sometimes we just need to listen, and sometimes we just need to be ridiculous. So I absolutely love it that you've given us. What a change of perspective. I'm feeling so much energy just talking to you, Mel. So keep continuing your wonderful work, and we are very excited about your app. We share with us what you can, and hopefully, like some of us, we will be joining your subscription and maybe become volunteers to sort of try this app out, right?
Please do. There'll be a link in the comments. Yes. I'll send you a link. And then please, anybody who wants to join us on this journey of being ridiculous and celebrating your wins, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. We would just love to hear from you. Please sign up to our app, and
we're going to change the name of this episode from Imperfect Parenting to Ridiculous Parenting. That's what
I think that's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
I don't know about calling it ridiculous parenting. Might have some people eye rolling at us. I love the way you guys have taken imperfect and actually made it the standard, because
Yes.
we don't need to be striving for something that we can't ever achieve, and we certainly don't want that to be the lesson we give our kids. Mental health and well-being is so important, and if we're striving towards impossible ideals, we're not doing ourselves a favor.
Correct.
And part of why we want parents to celebrate their wins is also because we know that when we lift up parents and when parents are feeling better about their own journey, there's definitely a carry through for the kids. And it's such a powerful thing, because let's face it, after these last couple of years, all of us have been bashed 6 ways to Sunday. All of us feel like this has been a very hard time. And I think that more than anything now, we're all united in our need for something bigger, something better, something a little bit more empowering, but also something that gives us strength. And that something is actually already in us.
Correct.
And I think that realization is something that we would love to spread to people, and we would hope to have people join this way of thinking. It's not even a new way of thinking, and it's certainly not my way of thinking. It actually has its roots in solution-focused brief therapy, which is an incredible form, a therapeutic approach. And it forms the basis of a lot of what we do with the app. So I also want to shout out to solution-focused brief therapy as being part of the inspiration for the ideas behind the app. And so
it's good.
And tell us the name of the app again, Mel.
The app is called Oreka.
Oreka, like Eureka. Oreka.
Yeah, it's Oreka, not Eureka, but it might be nice if people have their Eureka moments. It's called Oreka because Oreka is the Basque word for balance. And our logo is a unicycle, because parenting is like riding a unicycle. You fall off, you feel like you're in a circus. It's difficult. Some people might make it look easy, but actually everybody's falling off at some point or another.
Yes.
And you can move fast if you know how to do it.
That's true. So it's a balancing act. It's kind of like a balancing act. Yeah.
It is a balancing act. Yeah, it is.
I would say definitely the wins are the front tire, the front wheel, which is the bigger wheel, and then the small wheel is the failure. So stop focusing on that. Just balance it out.
Yeah, I really like the idea, because by balance, I think that we are talking about redressing the balance, like regaining the balance, because for many of us in the tough times, our default setting is thinking about what we've done wrong. And so what we mean by balance in this sense is addressing that what we've done wrong with what we've done right. And it's not about staying in a state where we are happy all the time. Yeah, like let's be very clear that no parent is happy all the time. That is not the goal state. No learning can happen with perfection. So like nobody's even striving for that, and nobody's striving for happy all the time. This is the other thing that's really important. If your kids are talking to you about difficult feelings, big feelings that make you struggle too, be open and honest about it. Yes. This is not about this is wonderful, let's only talk about what's going well, I don't want to talk about what's going bad. No. Because even your child opening up to talk to you about a difficult feeling is a win for you.
Is a huge win. Every parent wants that, because that's how we can guide them to on the path that they're having so much difficulty with.
Yeah.
Exactly. And my final tip is that when in doubt, instead of giving platitudes or advice, just ask a question. Ask your kid what they think, what they feel, what they would advise a friend, what they want to do, what their gut is telling them. Sometimes parents give a lot of well-meaning but not so helpful advice to kids, which makes them then feel like they're not being heard, because they feel they need to say something, because they feel that, okay, this is the script, right? Kid tells problem, parent gives solution, that's the script, that's the schema, done. And a lot of the time we say things and we're thinking, and I mean myself too, like I sometimes have to remind myself. I actually have a sticker that says, remember, best answer is a question.
I'm going to put that down.
I love that. Best answer is a question, because then that's where you're saying, tell me more, and they figure out the answer by themselves instead of you coming up with some platitude, like you said. So I really love this conversation. Thank you once again, Mel.
Thank you,
Beautiful
Mel.
tips. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
joining
thank you.
us.
Thank you for
And
having me.
thank you.
We had a
And
great time, and we are going to continue to be ridiculous as much as we can.
be
At the same time,
ridiculous.
I love the way
That's
you're making us shift our perspective, and we are very grateful to have you today.
That's our advice for today. Be ridiculous. That's all we can say. Thank you so much for joining us on Imperfect Parenting. And we look forward to seeing you again next week for another episode of Imperfect Parenting.
Bye.
Bye.